Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Stanley Whitaker here from the band Happy the Man. They've got a new single out called Only Love. And we're going to get to know Stanley today. We're going to talk about the music. So let's kick it off right. Stanley, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I son of an army colonel, grew up in all over the different countries, Spain and Germany, and spent all my high school years in Germany and Frankfurt, Germany. That's where I met or first heard every cool prog group in the planet. We were there 69 through 72. And so that was where I became musically aware, I would say. I had always been into classical music, and just hearing Yes and Genesis and Gentle Giant. Gentle Giant has always been my most favorite progressive rock group of all time there. Um, and the Beatles. I've been a huge Beatle fan my entire life. They probably had the most impact on me as a child, watching them on Ed Sullivan's show, not being able to hear what they were singing because the girls were all screaming. But that was it. It was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And then I think the first record I ever bought was Are You Experienced? Which my dad, being a full bird colonel, wasn't real thrilled with that choice of a record just by the cover of it. I bought it just because it had a cool cover. Lo and behold, he's still my all-time favorite guitar player. He was more tapped into spirit and the universe and the moment, I think, than any other player out there. But yeah, then met Rick while I was over there. I had a band that got to play all the U.S. Army bases before both my parents came back to the States. We stayed in Germany because we had a little band called Shady Grove, but for the summer it was called Davis Agency Band, I believe. But in that band, Rick Kennell happened to be had just joined the army and was stationed at one of the gigs we were doing, and he and I just started talking. My older brother Ken, who named Happy the Man, he was the singer and slash painter. He would paint a painting throughout the performance. He was a very eclectic, very interesting fellow. But he and Rick went and talked for hours about progressive rock. And I remember Rick came out and we were just doing sound check type stuff, and he asked if we knew The Knife by Genesis, and it was like, oh yeah. So we ended up playing that with him, and it was like, and I told him then, it's like, man, let's keep in touch because I'm going back to the States, and I'm going to form a band called Happy the Man, and I'll keep in touch with you. And anyway, about 8 months later, he was on leave, and he went out to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where he was from, and got Michael Beck, who is our drummer, and they both drove out in a van, and we literally emptied our dorm room of all the beds and stuff, and we set up all our gear in our dorm room and rehearsed for a few days. And that was the first get together of Happy the Man, and it sort of grew out from there. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun opportunities. I think we produced some pretty amazing music back then, and we managed to catch lightning in a bottle. Because it's not easy to do, and I know people have been hitting me up already with this new song, like, are you going to tour? Are you going to go out and play? And it's like, if we did, we'd have to play the easier Happy the Man songs from our past, because a lot of that stuff is beyond my comprehension at this stage of life. Anyway, that's sort of a quick capsulization.
Didn't you get to audition with Peter Gabriel?
That's a really great story, actually. It was I think it was June 28th, the day after my 21st birthday, that we actually rehearsed with him. He had been looking for uh, a band basically to back him up, and he had five of them in mind, two or three in England and two or three here in the States. And we were in touch through their road crew, their entire road crew for Genesis. Craig Schertz, Mike Ponzak, Dale Newman, Dano, and all these guys were from Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where Rick and Mike were from. So it was just kind of amazing that all this musicality was happening out in Fort Wayne, Indiana back then. And so we were funneling cassette tapes to our roadie buddies there, and they were letting them get heard by the band there. And Peter had heard it and really wanted to check us out. And we were the last of the five bands. We had heard all these horror stories, how we'd go in and spend 15 minutes and get flustered and leave. And we were like, well, it's Peter Gabriel. Come on now. So anyway, we finally got to rehearse with him, and it was amazing. He had just worked up the music for the first album, and I think we worked on Salisbury Hill and Down the Dolce Vita, and a little bit on one more. But he ended up spending 7 or 8 hours with us in this rehearsal place and really loved the band. And there was maybe 2-week period after that where he was calling every day and talking to me on the phone. And he mostly wanted me and Kit, and was wondering if he could take me and Kit. And I was just adamant that no, that we would, we worked 6 years to get a record deal offer, and we finally have an offer on the table from Arista. And, that's a major label. We auditioned for Ken Scott. He wanted to sign us. And so we were trying to juggle the two things. And Clive Davis signed us at this audition, but was like, he sat there the whole 45-minute set, laying back in his chair, eyes closed, hands behind his neck. And afterwards pretty much just said, well, this was way above my head here, but Rick Chertoff here, my head of A&R, loves you guys and says you're like some band called Gentle Giant. And anyway, we need to sign you. So that's how we got signed to Arista. And the Peter thing just didn't work out because, for one, I wasn't going to take me and Kit out of Happy the Man. And we also were pitching that Happy the Man could be the opening act. And then Peter could come out and we'll do a whole set of Peter. That was discussed for a while there too. But anyway, yeah, it was a great opportunity just meeting him. And I know he's still a fan. So I hope we get this song to him somehow. Peter, if you're out there, check out this new tune.
Now, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but I read that you lost one of the members last year.
Yeah, that was strangely enough the impetus for me to put the band back together. Frank Wyatt, who was one of the 3 writers, we had 3 writers, me, Kit Watkins, and Frank. And Frank wrote just wonderful, very orchestral stuff. And we were fortunate to have 3 completely different writers, but somehow the music still worked together just because how we arranged all the music together. But Frank had been sick for a long time, maybe 10 years, with kidney cancer, and it had spread to a lot of his other organs. And so he had pulled together his last record, a record called Zeitgeist that he did before he passed, and tried to get, I think he got everybody that was ever in Happy the Man to play on it, at least on a track or two. I sang on one and put guitar on one. But and yeah, he just got sicker and sicker, and we weren't working together. We had put together a band called Oblivion Sun, and we put out a couple of albums under that name, and second one quite brilliant, actually. I think Merlin of the High Places was the second one. And anyway, yeah, he just continued to go downhill, and we hadn't really been working together much, he and I. And the the morning after he actually passed, was January 11th, because he died on the same day Jeff Beck died, which, what a sad day. Jeff Beck, right there, number 2 under Jimmy for me. But the next morning, and I had been working on my solo record, my first solo record ever. I have about 3 albums worth of material that I've, whenever the muse has struck me and I get a musical idea, I've been smart enough to start going up and recording that little snippet, even if it's only 10 seconds long. Because when my mind tells me I'll remember that. And I'm in the car, I'm sticking it over, and then by the time I get home, it's gone. So I learned a long time ago that when I have those flashes of inspiration, to grab them, because if I don't, they're gone. But I woke up that next morning and literally felt God saying to me, now's the time to put Happy the Man back together. And again, I was gobsmacked, whichever is proper there, because I had no intention of putting the band together. Rick and I had stayed in constant touch, and he knew I was working on my solo record, and he even sent me a little M1 M1 audio or something, drum machine that's back over here, for me to do my drum parts. I had all the guitars and vocals and guitar and bass done already, but it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, wow, who would be better rhythm section than Stanley here? Let's see. Rick Kennell, Mike Beck, Ron Riddle. It's like, let's give them all a call. So that's what I did, and they were all 100% into it, and that's how it came back together. Kind of strange.
The song Only Love, does it have a Beatle influence to it? Because I kind of picked that up.
I'm glad you picked that up. Yeah, it's absolutely Beatle influence. It's uh everything about it. Because like I say, to me, the Beatles were the most progressive rock act on the planet. And I've had many discussions with people over the years about that. But who can you think of from record to record that grew the way the Beatles did? And that's the true meaning of progressive to me, is you don't stay stagnant. You don't stay in one pigeonhole. You move, you evolve. And to me, the Beatles were the prime example of that. And my muse is, I'm very blessed and graced to get a lot of music. I get a lot of music ideas. I very rarely get words, lyrics. It just doesn't happen for me. I'm not a gifted guy that could just sit down and write stuff out there, on that front. But this particular day in August, it was August 2020, and I was very frustrated with the whole COVID thing, and I just couldn't believe what was happening and what was not happening. And in a deep, prayerful moment there, I basically was saying to myself, "Dear Lord, we need John Lennon's voice. Where's John Lennon? Boy, could we use John Lennon right now?" It's like, I wonder what he'd have to say about all this. And like, I spent the next hour and a half just writing continual notes in my little special blue book that I put stuff in, and it just poured out of me. And it's, next thing I knew, I had more than enough lyrics for 2 or 3 songs. But that's how I got the words to it. And, they were always singing about love and peace and hope. And that's sort of where I've always been my whole life. I have tried to live with those values. And the idea that this song could pop, a lot of people hear the title and they're like, well, that doesn't sound like Happy the Man. Where's the knee bitten nips or Stumpy or one of those crazy titles? But when you hear the whole catchphrase is only love can cure our hate, that just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, thank you, John, for giving me that, and God, and whatever. Because anyway, that's how the lyrics came about, and it's totally Beatle influenced.
Was it your idea to put the layers on that song? Because it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of like Ron being involved, when I first formed Happy the Man in 1972, my initial intent and want was to have it be a three-piece rock band with a full orchestra behind it. We didn't have full orchestras back then, so we were fortunate to have Kit Watkins and Frank Wyatt be in the orchestra. But anyway, here in later years, Ron Riddle has been earning his livelihood the past 20 years doing film score and documentary score work for National Geographic, MPT, a lot of the public television stuff, and he's just brilliant at it. And so it was like, God, not only could I have Ron Riddle's drums, but I can use his orchestration skills. So all the orchestration stuff was purely out of the mind of Ron Riddle there. And the other great skill that I didn't know of till this recording was how great of an engineer and mixer Rick Kennell was, because he took all those mini tracks and managed to put it all together so you could still hear every little thing. I mean, we went through probably a 3 or 4 month process of mixing it once it was finished, but Rick really went above and beyond the call of duty because he mixed and mastered it. And, it was over 100 tracks with all the orchestration. And I'm extremely pleased with how it came out.
What's been the biggest hurdle in your life?
That's a great question. Probably the cancers that I've had. And that was the first initial one, like 12, 13 years ago. I had been healthy my whole life, had been married to my lovely wife for 5 years. And then all of a sudden I get this lump in my throat over here. And I had been singing a lot. So I just assumed it was, just I'm singing 4 or 5 nights a week. And, it's just a stress thing. Anyway, it took a very dear friend of mine, Fred Brown, who was like one of the head hotshot lawyers at Warner Brothers, who went to high school with us over in Frankfurt, and he called with a really terrible type of cancer that was esophageal cancer that took his life just a few months later. And me and Frank and my wife flew out there to LA for the funeral, and I was able to speak and tell people that, look, man, if you've got something in your body or anywhere that doesn't feel right, then you need to get it checked out. And Frank was there, and that was when we finally hit home with Frank, because he had been griping about his gut and stomach for years. He'd hunch over and it's like, Frank, you should get that checked out. Nah, it's okay. A lot of guys are just like that. They just assume they're invulnerable. And that's where I was at when I was 55 and diagnosed with this adenoid cystic carcinoma, a very rare cancer that struck this side. They had to pull all my lymph glands out of here and 2 surgeries there and 36 radiation treatments, which is what really knocked it out. And I would say that ordeal was probably the toughest one. Af After that surgery and after 10, 12 years now, that cancer is gone, but I still have leukemia. I have CLL, which is chronic lymphocytic leukemia. And so, yeah, guys, women, anyone out there, if something is bothering you in your body, listen to it. And if your significant other is telling you stuff like, you should really get that checked out, honey, listen to them.
Yeah.
And it can't hurt to get it checked out. And if you catch this stuff early, which I've been fortunate to do, it's, you can live with it.
What's your philosophy on music?
I think music's main purpose is to spread love and light. I think uh, music has it's the one power and force that can touch anybody and everybody, no matter who the heck you are, where you're from, your politics. It has a universal, there's an energy to anything that's done with passion and that's done with love, because hate can be passionate also, as we see in our world right now. But love will always conquer hate.
Do you guys have a website?
Yeah, there's a happytheman.com website that Rick has put up and is in charge of. And my lovely wife, Leanne, is just put up the new official Happy the Man Facebook page. So there is a Happy the Man Facebook page and a happytheman.com. And they both have links to the videos and to the different versions of the song. There's a shorter version for those that can't take 6.5 minutes out of their day. We, I had to suck it up and do a radio edit for the song, but on the video, the YouTube video channel, the Happy the Man YouTube video channel only has the long version. I was a stickler for that. But on the audio, there is a radio edit that's, I think, 4.5 minutes. So it chopped off a couple minutes. And there's a video that goes along with the short form too. I'm real happy with how those turned out. My wife Leanne picked all the imagery, and I went through it all and picked my favorite cream of the crop. We luckily have exact same artistic and political, social events there. So I just sat here and learned how to use Final Cut Pro and put it together myself.
We talked a little bit about the album before we started, and you said that's going to be a little ways off, but you're planning on putting out singles as they're prepared?
Yeah. As each one comes up, we've got stuff coming from me, Ron, and Mike Beck. I'm going to get a couple of Mike Beck songs in here. And we've got one more vocal tune to follow up Only Love that we're halfway finished with right now. We're going to get it out as soon as possible, so it's out there while Only Love is still out there. It's called We the People. It's another vocal angry Stan song. And then we've got 4 or 5 instrumentals that are in the can, not in the can, but that are in the works. Ron wrote a brilliant song called July 4th that's just killer, total Happy the Man. I've got a couple of instrumentals, one called Espionage et Toi, and one called Radiation Man, The Rather Curious Adventures of, in parentheses. And let's see what else. Anyway, so yeah, I got a couple of my silly titles back in there that will have the same quirkiness, but no real mini moog flailing. That was in the old days. The mini moog was the main lead voice for Happy the Man, and now it's 2024, and I want the lead voice to be my voice. So that's sort of where we're at. We don't know if on some of these upcoming tunes, we may indeed get one of our mini mode friends to do some gunslinging on it. And that'll make older Happy the Man fans very happy, I'm sure. But this is, 2024 Happy the Man. It's a little rockier, a little ballsier, a little more Beatley. And I hope people still like it.
Stanley, thank you so much for coming on my show, man. This has been fun.
Man, it's a pleasure, my friend. It was lovely meeting you. And to everybody out there, it's all about sharing the love and the light, because we got a lot of darkness ahead of us if we don't. So everybody just put it out there, whatever your gift is, even if it's just smiling at somebody you walk by.
Yeah.
Smile at strangers that you don't know. Come on, let's get it together, people.
Well, and I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button. For my regulars, you guys rock because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.